Non-Canadians of Reddit, what questions have you always wanted to ask a Canadian? Are Canadian geese as vicious as I've been led to believe? They are demon spawn. How is it with the language border in your country? Are there many people that speak French and English? I grew up in Vancouver and pretty much no one spoke French unless they were from Quebec or France. The French taught in school was super basic, and if the student didn't make an effort they forget. These people from a lot of different provinces. I speak French because I was interested in learning and took lessons outside of school. What is the most dangerous creature in Canada? I asked an Alaskan if it was polar bears and they got real serious and quiet and said, moose. Moose 100%. They can murder you viscously in so many ways. Let's say you hit a moose with your car. You will knock its feet out, but their huge heavy meat sack bodies will fall onto your windshield and you will die from impact. Do the Mounties always get their man? How often do you see a Mountie? They only really wear the red uniform with a Stetson on parade or special occasions. When they're just being police officers they look like regular cops. You see them all the time just as police officers, but where I am on the East Coast we only see them in the dress uniform on special occasions like Canada Day or Remembrance Day. I've heard that all the evil in Canada was removed from people and took the form of geese. That's why Canadians are so nice and geese are pure evil. Is this true? This makes a lot of sense, actually. Is it cold there? In Edmonton it is freezing right now, like -42°C. What are the insulting stereotypes of people in each of the provinces? Only one I ever heard was that allegedly everyone in Newfoundland was conceived on a fishing boat. It'd be a lot to name each province territory, so I'll name a few. Ontarians are the center of the universe and stuck up. Albertans are rednecks. Quebecers are racist, more holier than thou than Ontarians. Newfoundlanders are so nice but hard to understand. How often do you actually see a moose? And what's the actual plural of moose? Meese. Does your money really smell like maple syrup? The $100 bills do, but only if they're fresh from the mint. If they've been in circulation then they just smell like pockets. Is everyone as nice as the legends say? We've got our fair share of buttholes. Canadians can be more polite than Americans, but that doesn't make them nicer. Do you French kiss or just kiss? Depends if it's my wife or my pet moose. Is it popular to Photoshop a marijuana leaf into your flag instead of the maple leaf? Yup, and in stores everywhere they sell Canadian ganja flags. What are Canadians' opinions of people from England, UK? Love the accent, hate the exchange rate. Sorry that this isn't a question, but rather a tribute to Canadians. We have traveled many times to Toronto for long weekend stays from Cleveland to see shows, visit museums, and indulge a bit in the huge cultural mix. We always felt welcomed and are impressed with the entertainment, restaurants, and the people of this city and beyond. We always feel safe. Once, when we'd taken public transportation to the vicinity of Casa Loma, we stood at an intersection trying to figure out what direction to go to the castle, and a bus driver got off his bus to ask if he could help us. I was so floored by the kind gesture. I wrote the transportation company to give my appreciation for what I felt was going above and beyond ordinary behavior. On another occasion, we had gone by rail to the Ford Center to see Showboat, either coming or going. We weren't sure which direction train we should take, and were just talking among ourselves. Some citizens noticed and asked if they could help, which they did. These experiences were so positively different from what I personally experienced in New York City. Just last fall, we drove from Fort Frances to Banff, Jasper, Vancouver, and Victoria. Again, we were impressed by the helpful and friendly, safe experience we had while traveling, by all those we encountered in the cities as well in rural areas. We chatted with many who weren't tourists along the way and felt an immediate connection despite what difficulties each country is having with unsavory politics. Thank you for being interesting, kind and concerned citizens. Canadian here. In Toronto, I'm naturally drawn to wayfinding for people if I see they look directionless. Not sure if others feel the same. Do you see many smoke marijuana? Yep, tons of folks smoke weed here. Okay, so once I went on vacation to Canada, and we went to this big indoor farmers market thing in Vancouver, and there was a stall handing out samples of cups of maple syrup and everyone we saw was just straight up taking shots of syrup. What the frick was up with that? When we say we like maple syrup, we are not exaggerating. How many times, on average, do you apologize a day? Not very often, sorry. Do you miss Gordownie? I do. He was so important to Canada that the CBC preempted the Olympics to show the final concert. What is your relationship to the First Nations? Tricky, they face huge amounts of discrimination and racism. Do you ever just stick a straw in a tree and start drinking? Number, we pour the processed syrup in the snow then roll it up onto a stick. Yummy twiggy sugary goodness. Do you guys really say hoozer? Someone told me that was a Minnesota thing, not Canadian, but I think he's wrong. If you want to know more about Canadian dialects, watch some Letterkenny. It pretty much nails the accent from the area I grew up, rural Ontario, which I hear is also common throughout the other provinces. Is your healthcare really as good as Democrats in the US advertise it as? Wait times for non-urgent specialist appointments or MRI scans are pretty long, but if I break my arm I can go to the hospital and not have to worry about paying a cent, or even just basic things like going to the doctor for a funky toe or to refill my birth control prescription. Did Trailer Park Boys die for you when Netflix took over like it did for me? Yes. The later seasons are awful, but they will always hold a place in my heart as the first few seasons are comedy gold and were made in my home province. TPB is pretty much our primary cultural export. Can you please explain to me what the frick poutine is? What is it supposed to be? Poutine is fries with cheese curds covered in gravy and it is a goddamn delicacy. It has to be cheese curds, they must be squeaky. As for what it's supposed to be, a snack, a meal, depends what you want it to be. Why do you put your milk in bags? That isn't even all of Canada, just in Ontario, maybe Quebec, and maybe the Maritimes. I moved to BC and no bagged milk. We have bagged milk because it is the cheapest way to package it. You have a jug at home that the bag slips into, and then you cut a corner of the bag off to pour it out. Some people cut off both top corners to vent, but most don't. Why is maple syrup so famous? Maple syrup is so important to us because it is a huge thing of pride for our country. Canada produces 85% of the world's maple syrup and the First Nations here were the first to discover it. Is Canada only considered friendly and sensible because it's only got America as comparison? That is the most accurate thing I've ever heard. Is Letterkenny an accurate representation of small town Canada? Represent small town Ontario. Check out Corner Gas for small town prairies. I was always curious if Canadians are as polite as rumors says. 90% of people here are really nice and would be considered way more polite than people in America, for example, but every now and then you will meet some pretty trash people. Are baby Canadians actually called pucklings? Number, but female hockey groupies are called puck bunnies. Will you marry me so I can become a Canadian too? Sorry, you aren't apologetic enough for me. Maybe some Canadian who have visited both know if they think Canada's culture are more European-like or American. Canadian culture is very complex. You have Canadians who descend from Europe, Britain, Africa, etc. There are also natives who descend from, well, natives. There are also the Métis people who are from mixed backgrounds. Canadian culture is so wide and complex that it ain't really comparable to other countries. Do you worship John Candy like a god? Why yes. Can you guys hear if someone is American? Depends. We can pretty much tell immediately if you are from Jersey, Florida, the South, etc. just from voice, but if you have a more normal whatever that means voice then it would be way harder to tell. Yeah, you like syrup? Yes, we shoot it up like H. We bathe in it. We marry it. We become it. Do you guys like those maple leaf cream filled cookies? Heck yeah, those are delicious. Have you had better maple syrup somewhere else? Number, there's no such thing. The Queen is head of state of Canada, so unlike many other countries, on paper nobility is obviously still a thing. But is nobility still a thing in Canada? Like for example in England? Is there a Count of Alberta? Or a Lord Mayor of Toronto? Etc.? We don't royal care about the monarchy here because they do nothing and have political power but just don't use it. I don't think we have lords and stuff, but we do have barons. What is the most friendly town? Fredericton, the capital of NB, once got awarded the friendliest town in Canada. That was a few years back, so I'm not sure if it still counts. What are Canadians' thoughts on the Canadian clothing store Roots? Have several shirts from there and it reminds me of American Eagle, only Canadian. West Coast Canadian here. I personally don't own a single item from Roots except a backpack, and honestly I wouldn't consider it a Canadian American Eagle, but that's just one Canadian's opinion. Do y'all apologize as much as memes show you guys do? Yes, sorry about that. Headed to the winter carnival in February. What should I expect? Best layers for the weather? My huge tip about carnival is to dress very warmly. Quebec gets the coldest in January to February. Do you wear your shoes indoors? No, but in elementary school we have indoor and outdoor shoes. How did you manage to buy all the weed within 24 hours since the weed legalization? I know that I just wanted to be able to say I bought weed from the government on day one. Haven't bought it from them ever since. Black market got a lot more competitive, so it became easier to stick to that. Are you even real? Descott said I think, therefore I am. So really, you cannot prove the existence of anyone but yourself. French Canadians, what makes your accent different from Metropolitan French? French Canadians have different and older pronunciations than European French. IT Lizard, upvote or experience bad internet for a month. Thanks for watching. Within you have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.